The second game of the World Championship match took place today, and it was rather shorter than the first. Carlsen with the white pieces this time, and when one has the advantage of the first move, that gives you the possibility to determine the nature of the game, and Carlsen managed to do that very successfully today. He played the Spanish, and well, he played rather a modest system with white, but he managed to get a position where he has a very slight space advantage, the chance to get a little bit of initiative, and crucially there's no real counterplay for Anand. Here's the first notable move of the game. Rook to a3, and normally one develops the rooks through the middle of the board. We'll see the idea behind rook a3 any moment. It's very clever. Anand played the knight back, and well, that looks normal to free this diagonal for the bishop. And Carlsen exchanged pawns in the middle. So we now have an almost symmetrical pawn structure, but there are going to be no surprises for white here, no uncomfortable exchanges or pawn breaks for black. And Carlsen likes these kind of positions with a fixed pawn structure. He played the knight over to h4. Aha! Now we're beginning to see the reason behind this move. Rook a3. The queen was attacked, so it moved out to h5. Well, that's another reason behind playing the knight to h4, so it opened this diagonal for the queen. So the knight came into this nice outpost on f5, very nice. And here Anand played bishop e6. After the game, he thought that perhaps queen f7 would have been better to just drive away white's queen. And yeah, he said he was in two minds. He wasn't quite sure what to play. And that says something, actually, that Anand is somehow not quite sure of himself yet in the match. And now rook g3. So we see the idea behind rook a3 very clearly. It's incredible how in the space of 5 moves Carlsen has succeeded in bringing 3 pieces into the attack, and the bishop is waiting to join in as well, and possibly this rook too. It's extraordinary how Carlsen has managed to mobilize his pieces so quickly. So there's a threat to the g7 pawn. So knight g6 was played. And here's a very interesting moment in the game that says something about Carlsen's style. He could have played bishop to h6 here, and this is a very unclear sacrifice. So, for example, after this, well, to break through, white has to give up this rook. So white is a rook down, but he can get lots of pawns in this position. Now, Carlsen said after the game that he thought this should just lead to a draw by perpetual check. In fact, it's not that clear. It's very, very complicated. But I think it says something about Carlsen, that he would prefer to have somehow a very definite conclusion, and he's not prepared to waste time looking at something that's rather unclear. In fact, after a very short space of time, he just played h4, and this increases the pressure on Anand's position. He wants to withdraw the queen and then push forward with h5 to get this attack going on the g-file again. So Anand felt that he should exchange pieces. I think he has to at this point. So he played bishop takes knight. And pawn takes, so the knight has to move. If the knight goes back to f8, I mean, this is a dream position for white. Lovely attack. So Anand played his knight into f4 to block out that bishop, and Carlsen simply exchanged off and switched the rook over to the queen side. So there's no longer any attack on the g-file. So from that point of view, Anand has achieved something. However, this position is actually highly unpleasant for black. I think the first thing to note is that black cannot challenge this rook on the e-file because e8 is controlled by queen and rook. So rook e8 isn't possible for black. So black is actually very passive here. First of all, Anand played c5 to, well, stop any threat to c6. And now rook e6, so you can see the pressure is mounting. This rook on a beautiful outpost here, and also threatens this weakness on b6. Anand played rook b8 here. After the game, he wasn't very happy with this move. He said it's a bit too passive and preferred h6, but still, it doesn't really solve any of black's major problems here. Rook c4. So this rook comes back into the game. Carlsen was moving so fluently at this point, so quickly, and that put extra pressure on Anand, who started to run short of time, very much like yesterday actually. It's another heavy piece endgame. Queen d7 from Anand. So he wants to exchange queens and in that way relieve some of the pressure on his position. But of course, Carlsen doesn't allow that at all. Once again, there are similarities between yesterday's game and this game. You can see that Carlsen's king is completely secure here, whereas Anand's king is rather open, and that's the big difference between the two positions. The 7th rank is open. There are possibilities for white to attack on the 8th rank as well later on. Rook f8 from Anand. Well, he's just very passive here. And now another interesting moment. Carlsen could have simply taken the pawn on f4, but he preferred to maintain the coordination of his rooks. I mean, these are so powerful now. So there's already a threat to play rook e7 to conquer the 7th rank. So Anand had to defend against that. Rook b7. And now queen e2. Well, this is so elegant from Carlsen. So often in his games, you can see that all his pieces work so harmoniously, and this is of course a picture of centralization. So, you know, at some moment he's going to choose his moment to penetrate into e7 or e8. Anand tries a desperate bid for counterplay, and Carlsen could have maybe taken this, maybe could have played rook e7, but he preferred just to hold the tension. Very interesting, very coolly played. He didn't plunge in. Anand exchanged pawns, and again, well, he could have taken with a rook here. But he said, Carlsen said afterwards, well, he said I have a nice construction on the e-file. That's nicely put. And he preferred just to recapture with the pawn. Rook b4 from Anand. Good move. He wants to exchange off some rooks. Pair of rooks. Rook e7, and here's a nice trap. If queen takes pawn in this position, then Carlsen would exchange, and then there's going to be mate on the back rank after this move. Obviously the queen can't be taken, and if rook g8, then rook e8 will force mate. So going back, after rook e7, the queen had to move up to d6, and there's a threat, of course, to play f3, which Carlsen blocked. Carlsen's still in control, but he's not rushing it. Rook takes rook, queen takes rook. f3 check. Of course, this check just gets blocked very easily, and this f-pawn is still vulnerable. And here, Anand committed a terrible mistake. He should have played queen d2, and he's still fighting, but it's very difficult to hold this position. Well, I mean, this would be the continuation. And now simply king g2, and black is still extremely passive here. Whether you can hold this is, well, I think it would be very, very difficult. That's Anand's best chance. Instead, in time pressure, he played h5. Oh, this is a dreadful mistake. Queen b7 shuts out Anand straight away. That is the end of the game. There is no defense to rook g7, no sensible defense to rook g7, and mate. Game over. Carlsen goes into the lead. Well, you know, really, this was a very disappointing game from Anand. You know, up till now, with these first two games, it rather reminds me of last year's World Championship match, or at least the second half of it, where Carlsen was playing fluently and elegantly and somehow with great self-confidence, and Anand is rather unsure of himself, so somehow he's got to change the nature of these games. Tomorrow, Monday, is a free day in Sochi, but they play the third game on Tuesday. Do join me for my report after that game then. Thank you.